Nigerian military officers were briefly held in Burkina Faso after their Air Force C-130 made an emergency landing in the country. The aircraft reportedly entered the airspace of the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES, without prior approval, prompting a firm warning from the alliance's military authorities. The incident has raised questions about Nigeria's regional role, especially following its recent deployment of a jet to Guinea-Bissau, and whether the country could be caught in wider geopolitical maneuvers in West Africa. To help us understand the implications of this, we're joined by Chidi Omeje, who is a Nigerian security analyst and publisher of Security Digest, and who has written extensively on how Nigeria must protect its sovereignty and regional interests. Good morning, Chidi, and thank you for making time for us. How are you this Wednesday?
Good morning, Asanda. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Yeah.
Can you give our listeners a brief overview of what happened in the Nigerian C-130 in Burkina Faso, why it's causing such a stir?
Let me just cap it this way. It appears that the matter has been resolved, but I can give you a background of what really happened. You know that there was a coup attempt in Benin Republic on Sunday, and of course you know that Benin Republic is the next country, southwards, westwards, in the region. It's not a small country, and they needed the support of Nigeria. So they called the commander-in-chief, the president, requesting for support. So the president granted a support, granted a coverage, and of course even sent in troops. And eventually the coup was quelled. And you know that within the sub-region, there's what they call AES, talking about the few countries in West Africa that are currently under military government. So those guys, talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria Republic. Now, after the coup was, quelled, we later heard that one of Nigeria's C-130, a ferry flight, moved towards Burkina Faso, and we learned that it had a distress call, and it had a distress, and they had to do emergency landing in Burkina Faso. So, but later on, the junta in Burkina Faso made a statement that a strange aircraft from Nigeria had been forced to land in Burkina Faso because it trespassed the airspace. They seized the aircraft, and then the crew, 2 crew members and 9 soldiers inside the aircraft. So later on, Nigerian authorities released their own statement talking about Nigerian Air Force and said, what happened was that the plane had some distress, and in fact the plane was en route to Portugal. But he had a problem, and he had to land in Burkina Faso. Well, to cut the long story short, the measures were saying, diplomatic measures were saying, and then eventually, just yesterday, the aircraft and the soldiers were released to Nigeria now. So as we speak now, the aircraft and the soldiers in there have been released. So this is just mirrors the kind of tension in the sub-region. It tells you exactly that all is not well in the sub-region, and the ECOWAS bloc, of course, has been broken since the military struck in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and Niger Republic. So as we speak, Nigeria happened to be, for those guys talking about the juntas, they see Nigeria as their key antagonist because, of course, we know that Nigeria is the superpower in that region. So Nigeria has always been, against that particular, issue of military coup, last decade. So this is exactly this background.
And as you mentioned in your writing, Chidi, Nigeria could be caught in external geopolitical maneuvering. Can you elaborate in terms of what you mean by that also? And if there are Western powers that
Yeah.
could be behind the support of Nigeria?
Yeah, of course, you know that most of these francophone countries, of course, Nigeria is surrounded by mostly by francophone countries, and then these guys, the countries that are trying to liberate themselves from France, from the French stronghold, they see Nigeria as not being understanding to their issues. So Nigeria now, as it is, might be caught up because France is clearly nostalgic about the relationship that has gone sour with its former colonies. So, Nigeria will not, if it lends itself to that particular, odious enterprise of trying to bring French back to its, stronghold on those regions, those areas, it is going to be a problem to Nigeria because these guys are definitely tired of French, chokehold. So Nigeria doesn't be careful. It might really be a problem because, like I told you, Nigeria is completely surrounded by these francophone countries. But then these are small countries that Nigeria can effectively deal with. But what we're saying is Nigeria must on no account, front France, because I see this as a true thing. Like since this man came in as president of Nigeria, he has made France a very, very, close ally to Nigeria, and it's not sitting well with some of these countries around us. So this is why I say in my last article that Nigeria must on no account lend itself to that particular proxy war, because it will certainly, not bode well for the region. It's part of the political difference, part of the geopolitics in the region. Those guys still remains our neighbors and our brothers, and I don't see any reason why we should spill blood on behalf of any superpower of France for that matter. That's what I mean.
On the point that you warn against repeating historical mistakes of African nations, and that one of those mistakes being drawn into conflicts engineered by outsiders, how can Nigeria ensure that it maintains restraint and strategic dialogue in this particular situation?
Nigeria must maintain that position it has as a regional power bloc, as the biggest economy, the strongest militarily in that region. It must maintain that leadership role. Must not be found, being in that position of trying to muzzle anybody, no matter how small the country is. The role I expect Nigeria to play at this matter of time is that of leadership, that of providing clear direction to say, look, we are Africans and we must carve our own niche. We must not walk under the shadows of any superpower. So Nigeria must play that role decisively, but it has to be fairly. It has to recognize the fact that these are also independent nations that are trying to, break away from the stronghold of this, French superpower. So Nigeria, the role I expect Nigeria to play is more of leadership, more of big brother role, more of trying to bring support to the dispersed, small countries around it. So Nigeria must not, lend itself to, to the fantasies of France. So Nigeria should rather, be more brotherly to its neighbors and provide clear directions and just like it did in the Republic, to say you have to make sure that the democracy is sustained. But then, like I said, on no account must it lend itself to the devices of France or any Western power for that matter.
All right, Chidi, we'll leave it there. And thank you so much for your insights into this topic. We appreciate your time again. Okay. Chidi Omeje is Nigerian security analyst and publisher of Security Digest, speaking to us here on Rise and Shine.
Ukatili wa kijinsia